Welcome to That's Based. Happy Easter Sunday. He is truly risen indeed. Christ is King, as you can see by my shirt. All of the other false prophets and false religions can piss off. And, of course, atheists are neck-bearded virgins and losers. All right, I had to get that out. Happy Easter, though, for real. Thank you. You guys could be anywhere in the world right now, yet you're here spending your Easter Sunday with me on a Sunday bonus show of That's Based. I am like freezing right now because it's 50 degrees here, and the day before it was 80. And I left the window open, and I've been trying to pump in heat into this room, and it's not working the way I wanted it to. So it's we're good. We're gonna push through, and it'll keep me more alert. So I promised you on Saturday that we'd have a bonus show because we had way too much shit to talk about, and anytime Monty's here, we always go over time anyway. So we just went ahead and decided to roll with a bonus show. I was like, there's no way we're going to get all this in under 2 hours. So let's just try our best here. So we got a lot to talk about this week still. But before we get into anything, since it's Easter, I wanted to show you guys something. So Netflix, so when the movie The Passion of the Christ starts, it pops up this Bible verse right here, Isaiah 53. He was wounded for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. By his wounds, we are healed. That's how the movie starts. Netflix has removed that and replaced it with a black screen. So anytime people try to come and argue with you that Christians don't have any, or that Christians have all the cultural sway and wield all the political power in this country, just remind them of that the company that bends over backwards to kiss at the feet of the woke mob went out of their way to remove a Bible verse from a Christian movie. There's literally no reason to do that other than to spit in our faces. We are constantly under attack in this country. And I'm telling you right now, you saw it at that satanic black mass where that guy grabbed the Eucharist from him and people started confronting that fat piece of shit who still hasn't answered my request to box him. The tides are changing. The tides are turning, and we're done putting up with this crap. It's over. We're not going to deal with it anymore. It's done. I'll tell you what, though. I am drinking one of these new protein shakes that are not a sponsor, but you can get them at Costco. It's like 12 for $20. Little pricey, but dude, it's worth it. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of protein shakes. I think they're gross. But what I will say is 150 calories, 30 grams of protein, 1 gram of sugar. I can pronounce every ingredient on the back of it, so they can't be that bad for me. I don't track those probably the way I should. This shit tastes like a McDonald's milkshake with a fifth of the calories and about 10 times as much protein. Tastes like a McDonald's milkshake, which is like guilty pleasure. I miss those. I don't drink those anymore. I miss them. And this is like an alternative to that. So Nuri, I think you can, Nurri, you can only get them at Costco. Free game. I love you guys. I want to share my life hacks with you in hopes that you'll do the same for me someday. Because we're all a family, especially if you join the That Space with Caleb Salvatore Facebook group where we can interact and bullshit and shit post. It's a good time. Okay, we got a lot to talk about. So we talked about the Karmelo Anthony stabbing on yesterday's show. And to full disclosure, we pre-taped that show on Wednesday, and there was a little bit of missing context to it, which is why I think in summer, I think we're going to restructure the way we record these shows. I don't know how we're going to do it. I need to lay out a plan for it, but we're going to restructure the way we record these so this doesn't keep happening. But so we talked about the Karmelo Anthony stabbing. There has since been some additional information that's come out. And you guys know I don't like to talk about these like racial issues, these issues that are becoming too polarized among races, because I think they're an intentional distraction. I don't see that there's any... I don't see that talking about them as a productive means of discussion in terms of American political discourse. But this has clearly become a hot button issue, and you have got grifters on both sides fanning the flames. Now, here's what I will say. Here's a bold take. I mentioned seeing people on the right going down a nasty path on yesterday's show, and I stand by that. However, I can't help but wonder when you see these anonymous accounts, and not all of them, of course, there are just some racists out there, but when you see these anonymous accounts using racial slurs and monkey emojis and just saying all kinds of horrific, like not jokes like we tell on this show, but actual racist shit, I can't help but wonder if those aren't paid agitators, if those aren't saboteurs that are going out and trying to fan the flames and rile people on both sides up. Maybe they're feds, maybe they're George Soros operatives, maybe they're from China, Russia, I don't know. But I can't help but feel like those people don't actually believe the things they're saying. And this is about a larger game, which is about, causing more of a divide within America. I don't know. With that said, Karmelo Anthony's parents, we've had some new developments about this. They launched a press conference, and I'll tell you about the press conference after this clip. But the father of the boy who was killed, Austin Metcalf's dad, showed up at the press conference. Now, he didn't make a scene. He stood in the back and just wanted to see what they had to say. Mind you, Austin Metcalf's father, almost immediately after the stabbing, within an hour or two, the local media found this guy, interviewed him, and within hours said, I don't want to, but I have to forgive him. I have to forgive him. I'm a Christian. I'm required to. If I want to get to heaven, I have to forgive him. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, this is touching and wholesome. Like, your kid got killed 2 hours ago. The killer was a teenager with a knife who stabbed him and ran off. Probably guilty. I can't use the word murderer because I can get sued, but probably guilty. And you're already forgiving him? You're a saint. So he shows up to the press conference. And what's important to remember right now is Karmelo Anthony's parents are not the ones calling the shots in this situation. I'm not saying they're innocent, but they have been co-opted by a guy named Dominique Alexander, who is a professional race pimp. This is what he does. He's not a lawyer, he's an advocate. And anytime you see, has there ever been a good person that we've referred to as an advocate? Think about it. Has there ever been a guy that you can go, yeah, I can get coffee or beers with that guy, that's referred to himself as an advocate of anything? I don't know any good ones. But he is advocating on behalf of the Anthony family, which means he's going out and fundraising and riling people up and doing inflammatory press conferences like I'm about to show you. But this is Dominique Alexander. Here's his rap sheet. 2009, felony injury to a child. 2009, forging a check, leading police on a high-speed chase, stealing a car, falsely claiming a car was stolen. Offensive physical contact, probation violations, felony theft of property, felony assault causing serious bodily injury, misdemeanor assault, continuous violence against family, theft, making a false report, evading arrest. So he's a real good guy, is my point. He's a real good guy. Now, Dominique Alexander, that's why he can't be a lawyer. So the family's got their own lawyers, and there's just grifters at every angle. So the dad shows up to the press conference, and this is what was said. They had police escort him out. Mind you, wasn't making a scene, just stood there. Wanted to see what they had to say. Probably wanted to, for the first time before he went to court so it wouldn't be as emotional, look his son's killer in the eye. And this is what they said after they had him removed. This is Mr. Alexander.
And all I'm going to say, so it don't be asked later, is that was disrespectful and just shows you all the character who is not invited. He knows that it's inappropriate to be near this family, but he did it. And so I say to people, actions speak louder than words. Okay? What he has failed into is the political operatives that want to make this thing a political thing of hate, yet bigotry, and yet racism. We have conservative operatives that have been posting nonstop about this case.
No, the dad is not diving into anything that's making this about racism. Yes, I agree. There are people that are unfortunately fanning the flames of this on both ends. Yourself being one of them, Mr. Alexander. You are deliberately profiting both financially and in your enhanced brand off of this tragedy. And it is a tragedy because countless lives have now been ruined over it. It's not, oh my God. What a piece of shit. Just cartoonishly evil, that guy. So they proceeded to use that press conference to attack the dead kid and just slander his character. We don't know how much of it's true. We don't know how much of it's not. Here's what I will say, though. Based on things I've seen floating around that were verifiably false, I think it's safe to assume that we can't just take it, that we have to take, or it's safe to say that we have to take everything that was said from Mr. Alexander with a grain of salt. Because it's like I said, the way that these false narratives about this Austin Metcalf kid that was killed are being pushed, it almost seems orchestrated. It almost seems like it's a concerted effort behind the scenes spreading false information, because a bunch of people don't just wake up and decide to Photoshop Instagram photos or come up with totally false narratives about a kid or just total lies about a sequence of events. Those are floated from a centralized point. Now, I don't know, but if I had to guess, I would say this guy's probably the one calling the shots. He's probably the one running the propaganda campaign against these kids. Now, the comparison will be made to George Zimmerman, to Jake Gardner, to Kyle Rittenhouse, people who were defended by conservatives to varying degrees after they were caught up in, accusations of murder. However, the difference is none of those people's families organized press conferences where they went out on the offensive against the victims. You can say what you want about any three of those cases, and we can have our disagreements and our agreements on some of them. That's fine. But none of those people's families came out on the offensive against the victims. I find it, because here's my thing. The stuff you saw floating around about Kyle Rittenhouse, let's use that as the most recent example. The stuff you saw floating around online about the Kyle Rittenhouse shooting from his camp, from his defense, was almost all used in court. They presented the facts because they were on their side. There was no need to manipulate headlines about any of the people that he shot. There was no need to come up with fake Instagram posts. There was no need to do any of that. So why is Karmelo Anthony's camp doing that? Why do they feel the need? And I'm sorry, these are so widespread. These fake allegations, these photoshopped Instagram posts with racial slurs on them that are verifiably false. These are so widespread and they've all gone so viral. You can't tell me that this isn't a centralized propaganda campaign. So if that's the case, why do they feel the need to spread these false narratives? Why not just roll with the facts? Could it be that the facts don't benefit them? I don't know. I'm asking questions. I'm not going to definitively call anyone a murderer in any case like this because I do need to actually see it played out in court. I'm very consistent like that. I would like to see all of the facts come out, regardless of the race of either side, of either party. It's a rare breed these days. But what I will say is Mr. Anthony's family has now launched a website selling T-shirts and other merchandise that say hashtag Free Mello. Yeah. Classy. Classy. Your kid kills somebody and you turn a profit off of it. For real. That's what we're doing now. You say, you know what? There's a market. And I'm all for going and getting your money and capitalizing on whatever you can. But I'm also for retaining your soul in the process. Jesus Christ said, and I'm paraphrasing, we're here on Easter Sunday, maybe this is appropriate. What good is a man who inherits all the wealth in the world but in turn loses his soul? Don't you think that maybe profiting off of your kid killing somebody, whether it was murder or self-defense, don't you think that that might cost you a little bit in the soul department there? Isn't that a valid concern for you? I think it is. I think it might hurt you a little bit there. Might make it a little difficult to sleep at night, even if it's on a $7,000 purple mattress, you know, in their new $800,000 home. You know what's crazy is Austin Metcalf's dad was asked to leave the press conference, escorted out, and in that entire sequence of events managed to not stab anyone in the heart. I hope Karmelo, because Karmelo was present, I hope he was watching and took notes. I hope he was watching and took notes. Look, when you're a rather controversial member of local media, you go to things and sometimes we get asked to leave or not even allowed in. I've never once stabbed anybody in the heart, regardless of how confrontational they got with me. I know that's crazy concept to not stab people in the heart, but I've managed to pull it off with relative success. Every now and then there's a guy that like, hey, you need to leave, buddy, and he gets all up in my face. I'm like, maybe I should stab you in the heart, but I don't do it. I'm kidding. This is just bringing out the ugly. And there are, as always, professional provocateurs that are fanning the flames of this tragedy, which is what it is a tragedy. And it's so gross. So gross. Because they would much rather see us fighting over stupid shit like this. Guys, here's the thing. If this happened in Portland or California or Massachusetts or some liberal state like that, I mean, you already got the activist judge that gave him the $250,000 bond, so I'm a little hesitant about it. But if this happened in one of those liberal states, they'd throw a real light sentence at him. However, this is in Texas. And Texas is, in all likelihood, going to throw the book at this kid. And when that happens, it probably won't be this year. I don't know how long the court date's going to take. Believe it or not, and this is hard to believe, I don't know how long the time frame is because I have never been on trial for murder. I know. Give it up for me, right? Clap for me. You know, that's, I've never once been on trial for murder.
I
was trying to give myself a little applause there. I clicked the wrong button. There we go. I've never been on trial for murder, though, so I couldn't tell you. As someone who's been asked to leave places multiple times, sometimes they were well within their rights to ask me. Never once been on trial for murder. So I don't know how long the case is going to take, but what I can tell you is if this kid gets convicted, it's going to be summer 2020 all over again. It's going to be riots in the streets, provocateurs being shipped in from out of state, possibly nationwide all over again. Buckle up. I mean, this is the new O.J. Simpson case, guys. So keep your ears pinned back. I don't know how nasty this shit's going to get. Okay. What else do I got here? What else do we want to talk about? Okay, let's talk a little bit about the tariffs and the Chinese government, some comments they made about you and I. Let's see what they said here.
是美国最大的贸易顺差地，但美国依然对香港如此加征关税，简直是蛮横霸道、无耻之极。
The U.S. is totally senseless and just makes the world see clearly that the U.S. does not want prosperity for Hong Kong. And they're interfering with Hong Kong, and they're the biggest barrier to prosperity of Hong Kong.
和繁荣稳定的最大黑手。
It's an ugly dude, side note.
他不是要我们的
They're not asking for tariffs, they're asking for our lives.
The
repeated attempts of the U.S. to contain and suppress, I talk a lot faster than him, Hong Kong will only result in the end of its agents in Hong Kong. And will backfire and harm itself and those peasants from the U.S. That's right. So I don't expect negotiation with China to happen anytime soon. If they're that's their vice president, kind of, but that's their second in command coming on the camera saying that the U.S. isn't just trying to punish us economically, they're trying to destroy us. Might be true. And then refers to Americans as peasants. 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 The country that was cementing people in their homes during COVID thinks that you're a peasant. Does that make you want to negotiate with China? Or do you want to up the ante? China doesn't hold the cards here. China doesn't, not long term. China needs the U.S. Now, we need China too, but we have more options because it's like I said, if you can bring all these other countries like Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos to the negotiation table before they can get there with China, which is it's a gamble, you can start incentivizing companies to move their operations to these other countries. And China will be without its biggest export partner, and they're not going to be able to make it up anywhere else in the world. Now, what I fear, like I said, this is a gamble. When I said we're playing cards, I'm being literal. This is a gamble on Trump's end here. What I fear happening is that it backfires and negotiations fall apart with these other countries, and China all of a sudden gets a new partnership with Canada and the EU and Mexico, and all of a sudden we're the ones who are left on our own, and we can't afford to bring goods into the country. And everything skyrockets here. There's a potential for that happening. This is, make no mistake, this is a gamble on Donald Trump's side. There's no guarantee this works. And when both countries, because J.D. Vance referred to the U.S. as borrowing money from Chinese peasants. So when both countries have their number two in command coming out, calling the other side peasants, and one saying they're, all that rah-rah talk, talking about how they're literally trying to destroy us. This isn't economic anymore. This is a life or death thing. The rhetoric doesn't really support both countries coming to an agreement. Here's the problem. China is a lot closer to those countries like Vietnam that we could potentially move manufacturing interests over to. They've got a lot more direct contact with them, interaction with them. During World War II, Germany sent a letter to Mexico and tried to convince them to invade the United States. Obviously, that didn't happen, but that was uncoded several years later. Why? Well, because Mexico, number one, knew what the consequences would be. Number two, they interact with us a whole lot more than they do Germany. The ties are a lot closer. They need us a whole lot more than they need Germany. Vietnam, they've constantly got this Chinese dragon breathing down their neck. They're going to be a little hesitant before they cross them. Okay, America, you're going to bring your manufacturing interests over here from China, but are you going to defend us if they decide one day that they're just going to roll up and invade? Or they're going to cut us off of other resources that we need? Are you going to be there to save us? Because if you're not, I don't want to deal with them, but I may have to deal with these guys that are bullying me. That's kind of the logic here. So this is a gamble. And China does not have a great hand. But what we need to keep in mind is we don't necessarily have pocket aces here, right? There's still the potential to, even with pocket aces, there's still the potential to lose. We still have the potential to get beat in this whole thing. And this could majorly backfire on us. And, I mean, you're talking it would kill the MAGA movement. The Trump and MAGA, that's done. That's done. I don't think you'll go back to your George Bush, Mitt Romney Republicans, thank God. But I think there will be some type of middle ground between MAGA and Mitt, as I call it, where it's not protectionism. So they'll keep the elements from the MAGA crowd where they give the middle finger to the PC police and kind of just say what they want, and they're pro-free speech and a little bit more socially conservative. but they'll roll over to the free market capitalism aspect that the Republican Party has seemingly forgotten over the last couple of years. I think that, honestly, that type of Republican is what I am. I don't believe in the political correctness. I don't believe in bringing a knife to a political gunfight and just constantly getting steamrolled over, trying to be the nice guy to the people that hate us. As you can see, I'm a little rough around the edges. I come on here, I yell, I scream, I cuss, I get angry, I threaten people. I think we can keep that element while remaining economically sound, while understanding the concepts of global trade and free market capitalism are relatively positive. But the problem is free market capitalism, it's been around for a long time. It's not perfect, but it's the only system that has consistently produced positive results. That's a fact. It's the only system that has long-term consistently produced positive results. The issue is it doesn't sell. It doesn't sell as well as the populist message of Bernie Sanders or AOC, where the government's going to come in and fix everything. It doesn't sell as well as Donald Trump's populist message, where he comes out and says, we're going to make everything in America. We're going to bring all your jobs back. You're going to make so much money, blah, 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 blah. Hey, let's leave shit alone and this invisible hand will fix everything. That doesn't really sell. Even though it's true, it doesn't sell to the average person. So you've got to find somebody who can deliver that, who can deliver a free market capitalist message in a populist manner. If you want that to be an effective game plan. Somebody like a Glenn Youngkin, who I think is a good hybrid. Free market capitalist, but gives the middle finger to the woke agenda on social issues. No, you're not going to trans our kids. This is the hill I'm willing to die on. Men and women's sports is not happening. Fight me over it. Fight me over it. You're not going an inch further with this woke insanity, but at the same time, I want sound economic policy. Is that too much to ask for? Do I have to run for office? No, I don't. I will never do that. Okay, what else? Do a couple more before we get out of here. Excuse me. So Bellevue Public Schools has decided to, and we'll do a little local news here. Bellevue, let me pull the news article up. We've got a couple local news items here. So the first one, saw this. There is a bill in the legislature to make it a felony to assault a pharmacist while they're doing their job. It's already a felony to assault a doctor or a nurse. They wanted to add pharmacists to that. There was a senator from Bennington, which is a suburb just north of Omaha, who is filibustering that. Why? Do you guys hate each other that much? Why are you? No, I think the pharmacist should get hit more. What are you doing? Of all the things to filibuster, you don't just have to filibuster. I think some of them filibuster because they like to hear themselves talk, like Cory Booker did in his 25-hour filibuster last week. Just wanted to hear himself talk and stay in the news. Okay, so Bellevue Public Schools changes policies for transgender students. This is WOWT News. It says changes include allowing teachers to disclose a student's transgender status to others, including parents, removing the right of transgender students to talk about their identity, and rewriting restroom access to say students shall access the bathroom that corresponds to their sex, not their gender identity. So basically, sanity. Bellevue Public Schools said, hey, we're going to rewrite the rules for sanity. And the reason they did this, well, partially the reason they did this, unanimously, by the way, is because the Trump administration was saying, we're going to remove your federal funding if you don't. And you know what? I'm sorry. Maybe we do have to start bullying these people into acting sane. I'm a big proponent of bullying. I think it never should have went away. Maybe we do have to start threatening and bullying these people, not physical threats, but financially threatening these people into acting like sane, rational people. Hey, you're done with this. You think you'll be fine on your own? Go ahead and go independent. But the federal government is not going to fund insanity any longer. Good luck. I think it's about time. And of course, there's been all these outbursts about it that they've sold these kids out. No, the school district has not sold these kids out. Do you know who failed these kids, who let them down, who sold them out? Was their parents, because they either went along with this crap or they actively encouraged it. You guys are the ones that failed the kids, not the school district. You guys are the ones who blew this. You guys have created this issue by allowing this crap to continue to manifest and not nipping it in the bud. Oh, but what am I supposed to do? How about be a parent? If your 5-year-old son says, I want to wear a dress, you know what you say? Boys don't wear dresses. And in his 5-year-old head, 99% of the time, he'll go, okay, well, the authority figure, my parents, said boys don't wear dresses, unless the last 5 years you've just spent building this relationship where you don't reinforce any rules and he has no respect for you. But in his 5-year-old head, if you tell him boys don't wear dresses, 99.9% of the time, he's going to go, yeah, all right, cool. Yes, I think we should reinforce the gender norms that have built thousands of years of society. Excuse me. I think gender roles are a positive thing. Maybe I'm old school, but we've had a pretty good run with traditional gender roles up to this point, where men are masculine, women are feminine. I think that's in the overwhelming majority of cases. When societies start mixing these, like you saw in the Roman Empire, is when they start to collapse. And it's no coincidence that in America, we're starting to see our quote-unquote empire collapse at the same time that we've begun mixing genders. Now, we can learn from history, and we can stop this in its tracks. And there's some adults that are too far gone, but we can halt this garbage with the youth, and we can actively start combating it now and finding ways to deal with it now. And a lot of people don't like this. There's no government policy that's going to actively end this insanity. It involves you being a parent, individuals being parents and saying no more, actually taking care of their kids and raising them properly. But we can learn from the Romans, and we can say, okay, the gender insanity signified the end of their empire. Maybe we should protect our own interests here and stop this before we meet a similar fate. Just spitballing ideas, of course. And we went over it on past shows about how Maoist China, one of the things they used to divide the kids away from the parents and turn them to the state and the Red Guard was gender. They'd say identify as, this or that, and if your parents don't agree with you, it's because they're old and bigoted and they don't understand. And we here at the state, we're inclusive and we're supportive. It's kind of like what you're seeing in public schools right now, where these teachers don't want to tell the kids the parents if the kids are trans. I mean, how ridiculous is that? If there's literally anything else going on in school, the teachers are required to tell the parents. Don't you think, hey, I want to chop my balls off might be something you might want to bring up at the parent-teacher conferences? Maybe it warrants an email or a phone call home. Certainly not something you keep secret. Now, there's always provisions in place, always, including with this one, where if there's a legitimate concern that the parents are going to beat the hell out of the kid if they find out, they don't have to tell them. There's always those provisions in place. And they always conveniently ignore those. But those are not the overwhelming majority of cases. I don't know any parents that find out their son wants to wear a dress or vice versa and go home and beat the hell out of the kid. They might be concerned, but I can't imagine they're going to beat them. Now, there may be consequences. And you know what? There should be consequences. There should be consequences because it is a drastic problem that needs to be dealt with swiftly. And if you don't deal with it, it's going to lead to more problems down the road. So there should be consequences at home. There should be action that's taken to prevent this. And I'm not a therapist, so I don't know what type of action specifically, but what I do know is that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If you look at the people whose kids are falling into this gender insanity, they've all got one of a few things in common, at least one. So a lot of the time there's more. Their parents are into this woke liberal insanity. You never see, now the non-binary thing's a little bit different. That's like a social contagion, a trend. But you never see the parents with the 5-year-old son that identifies as a girl that vote Republican. You never even see independents with trans kids. It is almost exclusively unhinged liberals every single time. that have these trans kids. Every single time. The non-binary thing, that seems to... Listen, all I'm saying is you've got... It's running rampant through the public school system, and you don't see that in Catholic school. You don't see that in private school. It's exclusively in the public school system because it's a trend among friends, and the teachers actively encourage it. Look at the people that are becoming... And, of course, not all of them. But look at the people that are becoming teachers, man. Compare these... I mean, we play videos of them all the time on this show. Compare these unhinged, blue-haired freaks that are spurging out about Trump in front of a TikTok camera to the cute little old lady that taught your first grade class. Think about that for a second. How much it's changed. You had all these teachers that were really good quality people are starting to retire, and the profession itself is attracting whack jobs, and it's only going to get worse as it becomes more polarized, as the stigma that's attached to public school teachers continues to grow, that there are these crazy liberal insane freaks. More and more people that are maybe not even on the right, but just in the middle and want to do good are going to say, no, find another way to help my community. I don't want to be associated with that. I don't want to be in that. And they look at the state of the school system where they actively encourage it and they punish any dissenting thought. And they say, I don't want to be involved with that. I'm out. The crazy liberals are eventually, if we don't do something now, going to totally overrun the public school system. And it'll be a lost cause. And we made this mistake a long time ago as conservatives, and I've brought this up before, where we focused on national and state politics and we ignored local elections. So you had these local school board elections, and maybe in really dark red areas that we've completely ignored. We've got a guy we're working on that we're gonna blow him out of the water politically here once we start dropping his name. We're working with some other groups in town here, but who's in a very, very red district that is a little too supportive of this. And I think if his constituents find out about it, might be the end of his political career. Stay tuned. But but the liberals focused on infiltrating the foundation level, infiltrating from the ground up. So we were focused, and we'd win some, we'd lose some on these big federal and state races, which are important. But if you don't, it's just like a house or anything else. If you don't have a foundation, the whole thing collapses, right? So the liberals focused on school board, and what they did there was not only did they get in at the ground level of government and get all this experience and build up a grassroots team, they sunk their fangs into the youth. And when you sink your fangs into the youth, you create a whole new generation of insane communists, and that's exactly what we've gotten. Not all of them, of course. There's some promising trends with Gen Z, but my generation, millennials, absurdly liberal, and that's because those lunatics took over the school boards and thus the curriculum while we were in school. And now you're seeing people fight back, and I think they've gone too far, and you're, thank God, starting to see some of these Gen Z kids go, this is insane. I'm good. This is crazy. I'm going to do the opposite of whatever the hell this is. And they back out. But we got to start winning school board races again. And the great thing about that is you don't need recognition to do it. You need hard work and a little bit of money. And it don't even have to be your money. I mean, you can... If you're listening to this show and you're sick of the crap they're doing in schools, you can actually affect it. No one's going to... It's not like you're running for Senate and they're going to be like, well, you were working as a Walmart cashier. You're not qualified to be a senator. Next, please, no. School board, they don't care. That's ground level shit, man. That's ground level. You can get in there and you can run. And if you know a couple people that'll throw some money at you, you can actually affect change in your local school board. And you don't have to have kids in the district either. So I would strongly encourage any of you that are listening to this that are sick of the crap that's going on in the public schools in this country, even in your area that might be relatively red, to go out and look into who is your school board member, what do they support, what have they said, what do they claim to support, and what have they voted for. Those are two big different things a lot of the time if you actually look into it. And maybe they need to be primaried out. Maybe you need to run against them. A lot of them are nonpartisan too. because we need more good people. We need to take back local government because these freaks have overrun it for the longest time, and it's time to start fighting back. We can't go on like this forever, or we're going to be in trouble. We can't keep losing the kids. We don't need conservative school policies. We need sane school policies. I don't want my kids to learn either end of the political spectrum spin on education. I want them to learn math. I want them to learn reading and writing and history, all that good stuff without a spin. I want the facts. If they want to spin, I'll stick them in front of the computer and make them watch my show, okay? Other than that, they're not going to get a spin. I don't want my 7-year-old learning about the colonial and racial background of math. Fuck off. Okay. Oh, I think we can do one or two more here. Let's see here. So the real ID is now required to fly. Stop listening, pause the show, pull out your driver's license, state ID, whatever it is. Look in the right corner. Is there a yellow star? If there's a yellow star, you have the real ID. If there's not, you can't fly. Now, this isn't a Trump administration thing. This was actually passed during the Bush administration, and the flight requirement was put in under Biden in December of 2022. So Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, came out. So it says a real ID is a federal standard for state-issued driver's licenses and IDs, mandated by the Real ID Act of 2005 to enhance security for identity documents. Requires stricter verification of identity, residency, and other documents when obtaining a compliant ID marked by a star or similar symbol. Starting May 7th, 2025, Real ID becomes mandatory for air travel and access to certain federal buildings such as military bases, courthouses, etc. Non-compliant IDs will no longer be accepted for the above purposes. Those without a real ID must use alternatives like passports, which may cause inconvenience or added costs. States may still issue non-compliant IDs for driving or other purposes, but they won't meet federal requirements. So I know you're probably like, okay, and to me, federally mandating this just feels like overreach. It doesn't feel like it's necessary. You can still fake one of these real IDs just as easily as you could with a non-compliant ID. Keep in mind, the 9/11 hijackers used passports to get on the plane. So this wouldn't have even stopped 9/11, which is what this was a response to. I don't have a problem with identification, state identification, which the 10th Amendment gives the right to the states to do. I don't have an issue with that. Yes, you should have to present an ID to fly and vote and do all of these things. But why does it need to be a federal ID? Listen, there's no one individual reason it concerns me, but anytime the federal government wants to create a new database of American citizens and their information, I just get a little worried. Why do you need another one? What's the point of another federal database of American citizens? Now, I've seen both sides of the political establishment have said that they support it on both the left and the right, which immediately sets off red flags in my mind. I'm like, whoa. What do you mean? Both the Mitch McConnells and Nancy Pelosi support this. This sounds like it could be some trouble here. I don't think I like this all that much. I think I'll pass. If both of those lunatics support it, probably not too good. Now, this does concern me because I think this expands beyond air travel and federal buildings. Think about it. When is the last time the federal government has ever done something that is started off as something minor like this and not expanded beyond that, like the Patriot Act, when they told us they were only going to use it to wiretap suspected terrorists. Then this guy named Edward Snowden comes around and says, hey, they're listening to all of your phone calls. They're collecting all of your text messages and emails, and they're calling it metadata, but they're spying on all of you. Then we find out that the Obama administration used it to spy on the Trump campaign. I mean, just on and on and on and on. It never stops where they tell you it's going to stop. It always spirals out of control because that's the nature of government. Because when you give government power, it's very, very difficult to close Pandora's box back up again. So how far does this go? This will inevitably expand beyond air travel, but how far? I mean, are we going to need this to go to the grocery store? This is kind of what they did. Like, are they going to use the real ID to do what they did or what they tried to do with the vaccines? You can't get a job without it. Maybe they won't let you get a mortgage without a real ID. Like I said, you can't go to certain stores. How long until this becomes directly connected to your bank account? And we go to a cashless society where they can deny you purchase? Because that's how the government will do it, man. If they don't like what you're saying, if they don't like something you did or something you believe in or something you posted on social media, if we go to a cashless society, they can just freeze your bank account at any time. No, this guy's not allowed. It'd be Chinese social credit score, more or less. That's where we're trending toward. I mean, we kind of had one for a while, especially under Biden. We had a social credit score. You don't have to take it from me, though. There's a pretty smart guy. He's a former congressman from Texas. His name was Ron Paul, and I'm going to pull this video up, and it's going to be really unprofessional for like 2 seconds, so bear with me. But his name was Ron Paul, and he had a pretty good speech on this. Here, I'll pull it up real quick. Oops. Put that in the middle there. So I accidentally deleted it before I got on here. This is why we need Mia for this stuff, because she does it way better than me and way faster. But here's Ron Paul on the Real ID back in 2005 when it was originally passed. This is what he had to say.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the rule. I rise also in support of the Sessions Amendment, but I also would like to take this time to make a few comments about why I will be voting against the bill. With the utmost sincerity and the deep conviction, I am quite confident that this bill, if you vote for it, you will be voting for a national ID card. And I know some will argue against that, and they say this is voluntary, but it really can't be voluntary. If a state opts out, nobody's going to accept.
What did I tell you? When this was passed in 2005, they said it would be voluntary. Sure enough, they're already going back on that. It's no long. I mean, yeah, it's voluntary the same way the vaccine was voluntary as long as you didn't want to join the military or work, right? This is voluntary as long as you don't need to fly or go into a federal building. See how they do this? See how they slowly erode it? They don't come out with the shock and awe right away. They just slowly get you used to the violation of your rights.
Their driver's license. So this is not voluntary. Matter of fact, even the House Republican Conference, who sent a statement around and some points about this bill, said the federal government should set standards for the issuance of birth certificates and sources of identification such as driver's licenses. This is nationalization of all identification. It will be the introduction of the notion that we will be carrying our papers. Matter of fact, I think it might even be a little bit worse than just carrying our papers and showing our papers, because in this bill there are no limitations of the information that may be placed on this identification card. There are minimum standards but no maximum limitations, and the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security can add anything it wants. So if they would like to put on there the fact that you belong to a pro-gun group, it may well appear on your national ID card, because there may be an administration someday that might like to have that information. But there's no limitations as far as biometrics. There's no limitations as far as radio frequency identification. That technology is already available and being used on our passports, which means that you don't have to show your papers. All you have to do is walk by somebody that has a radio frequency ability to read your passport or read your driver's license. And there's no limitation as to what they can put on these documents. And this bill also allows the definition of terrorism to be redefined. There is no limitations. And, you know, in many ways, I understand how well-intentioned this is, but to me it's sort of like the gun issue. Conservatives always know that you don't register guns. That is just terrible, because the criminals won't register their guns. But what are we doing with this bill? We're registering all the American people. And you want to register the criminals and the thugs and the terrorists. Well, you know, why does a terrorist need a driver's license? They can just steal the car or steal an airplane or steal a bus or whatever they want to do. So you're registering all the American people because you're looking for a terrorist, and all the terrorist is going to do is avoid the law. But we, the American people, have to obey the law. If we don't, we go to prison. So I rise in strong objection to this bill, and I hope that there will be a few that will oppose H.R. 418. Thank you.
I'm inspired.
That was the man who should have been president once upon a time, but he never was. The gun thing's the one that sticks out to me the most there. That's the one that sticks out. Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy watching old Ron Paul videos? You can watch Ron Paul's speeches on foreign policy, like the war in Iraq, American expansionism, all of it. Erosion of civil liberties here at home, all of it. And it's like the guy had a crystal ball that could just see into the future as far as what was going to come next. He wasn't a prophet, just like me.
I'm the Messiah.
He wasn't a prophet. Ron Paul was just very good at looking at patterns and telling you, hey, this is obviously what's going to come next, and nobody listened to him. I can't see the future, but I got to be batting like 800, 900 right now. It's not hard to do when you take your bias glasses off. And that's what Ron Paul did, and that's why both sides of the aisle hated him so much. So if you go back and watch old Ron Paul videos from when he was in Congress or videos from like presidential debates back in 2008, you'll go, oh my God, this guy called everything. And you'll have to do a double take. Like, is he actually a psychic? Is Ron Paul actually a psychic? It's just such a... The guy got so much right. Such a disturbing amount of information he got right and called to a T. You have to wonder. But the gun thing is what sticks out the most to me right there. If you're... Now, in Nebraska, we have what's called constitutional carry. The other states are cucks that don't have it. But we don't need a concealed carry license. However, up until a couple years ago, you did need one. So... myself and a lot of the people that are probably listening to this show still have those or had one at one point. Well, that's directly tied to your driver's license. I still keep mine. I keep it updated in case I travel because I don't want to deal with any bullshit. But that's directly tied to your driver's license. So when the federal government collects a database of everyone's driver's licenses, well, guess what? Now they have a database of all the gun owners. And we talk all the time about the dangers of a national gun owner registry. There's more reasons than just tyranny from our own government. Have you ever seen the movie Red Dawn? We talk all the time about the dangers of a national gun owner registry, and he even brought it up there about how you don't do that. They're effectively doing this. They're effectively mandating this. Saying you can't fly, and that's how they do it. They don't lock. It's basically a political mark of the beast. I don't believe this is the mark of the beast. Chill out. This is not the end times that we're living in. But it's basically a political mark of the beast. You know, you need it to access basic features, and they just slowly... It's what they tried to do with the vaccines. If you don't fall in line with it, they just slowly phase you out from polite society. Right now, it's just flights and federal buildings. Okay, maybe you never need to do either of those things in your life. Maybe you're afraid of flying or you're just, fuck it, I like to drive better anyway. I'll drive across country when I want to travel. Okay, fine. So be it. That's fine for now. What are you going to do when they tell you need one to have a bank account? What are you going to do when they tell you that your real ID has been revoked for criticizing X, Y, or Z policy on Facebook, and you need to go pay a fine to get it reinstated or whatever? What are you going to do? What are you going to do when you need to scan your real ID like a Costco card to get into the grocery store to buy food for your family? What are you going to do when you need a real ID to get a mortgage or to pay your utility bills? This is what they do. Yeah, they're not pointing a gun at your head and saying, hey, you have to get this national ID. They just slowly take away your rights and make it so inconvenient that you really have no choice. What are you going to do when you need one to get a job? I'm sorry, sir, we can't employ you here. You have to have a real ID. We can't document your real ID. We can't give you a job. What are you going to do? Or to buy a car? I mean, I can go on and on. They slowly erode your civil liberties in the name of counterterrorism or public health or defending the children or whatever the case may be. It's always bullshit, though. It's always bullshit. Here's a good rule of thumb for those of you that are still sitting at home going, I don't know. Yeah, I get it, but you might be stretching it a little bit. I don't think it's going to get this bad. Maybe I am. Maybe I am. All I can tell you is, like you saw in that video, and they were saying it's not going to be mandatory, and now all of a sudden it's mandatory. Two things. Number one, as we know, the government slowly erodes our liberties. They don't take them all at once. They'll tell you this is the line, and then the line just keeps perpetually moving until, hey, look at that. They've taken everything. That's number one. Number two, anytime the federal government wants to create a new database of every citizen in the country, or at least most of them, it's best to err on the side of saying, fuck you, I don't think so. That's been our show. We'll see you tomorrow for unsolicited advice. Happy Easter, everybody. Cheat on your taxes, not your spouse, and stay based.